Technology is changing so fast. And, it's even hitting how we evaluate programs and policies, feeling a bit overwhelmed by it all.
Yeah, you're definitely not alone there.
Which is why today we're doing a deep dive into a new book, Artificial Intelligence and Evaluation. Think of it as your shortcut, maybe, to understanding this evolving landscape.
Yeah, so who should really be picking up this book? Well, if you're involved in figuring out if a program actually worked or if a policy is having the intended effect.
Or even looking at research findings.
Exactly. This is for you. Maybe you've noticed more data, more tech kind of creeping into your work.
Right.
Or perhaps you're a policymaker wondering, how can AI lead to better decisions? Researchers exploring new methods will also find a lot here.
And even if you're just curious,
Yeah.
right, about how this cutting-edge tech is reshaping established fields.
Absolutely. This book offers a really clear view. It speaks directly to people who see big data and AI coming and want to understand what it all means. And it tackles that feeling many of us have that we're still learning about these tools. The book, these real-world examples, points out important things to think about as we go forward.
So if you feel like you need to get up to speed on AI in the evaluation world, this sounds like a pretty practical guide.
It really is.
Okay, so what's the big picture then? What's this book really trying to say at its core?
Well, at its heart, the book looks at how artificial intelligence and, related digital tools are fundamentally changing evaluation.
Okay.
And it doesn't just stick to theory. It gives very concrete examples of how these technologies are actually being used right now. It also looks square at the challenges and the ethical side of things.
Implications.
Exactly. The main idea is that AI can make our evaluations stronger, maybe more efficient, and can even offer new ways of seeing things. But, and this is important, the book also urges caution.
Be thoughtful about it.
Yes, be thoughtful and careful as we bring these powerful new tools into our work.
Okay. It sounds like it covers a lot of ground. Maybe we can walk through some highlights from the chapters.
Good idea. Chapter 1 sort of sets the scene. It talks about this huge amount of data we're all dealing with now.
The data deluge.
Right. And how different professions are reacting to digital tech. Interestingly, it notes there actually isn't a ton of published research yet, specifically on how digital tech impacts evaluation.
That is interesting. So a bit of a gap there. What about chapter 2?
Chapter 2 dives into using online data, social media data in evaluation. It shows the potential, sure, but it also flags the risks.
Like what?
Well, cleaning that kind of data is a huge task. You really need to know what you're doing. And there's a big risk of accidentally leaving out certain groups of people if you only rely on those sources.
Right. The digital divide and all that. Okay. Chapter 3.
Chapter 3 looks at geospatial stuff. Think satellites, drones, even those Internet of Things devices, how they can strengthen the evidence in evaluations.
How so?
Well, they offer new ways to collect and analyze data, sometimes in places that are hard to reach. But the chapter also points out the downsides: cost, complexity, and definitely privacy concerns.
Always privacy concerns with that tech. Makes sense. Chapter 4.
4 focuses on chatbots and virtual agents for data collection. These can be surprisingly useful, especially in places with weak internet or when you need info from tons of people.
But I imagine there are limitations.
Oh, definitely. The chapter notes they might not be great for really sensitive topics, and setting them up correctly, deploying them, takes careful planning. It's not simple.
Gotcha. Chapter 5 sounds fascinating. Natural language processing and generative AI. Understanding text.
Exactly. How computers can understand and even generate human language. This can help analyze massive amounts of text data in evaluations.
Like what kind of analysis?
Well, the chapter gives examples like analyzing huge portfolios of documents or automatically identifying common challenges people mention in project reports. But again, it flags issues around data quality and potential AI bias.
Always have to watch for bias. Okay, chapter 6 sounds very practical.
It is. It's a real-world case study auditors working with data scientists. They use text mining and machine learning to help categorize cybercrime cases. It really shows that collaboration potential.
Different experts coming together.
Yes.
Chapter 7.
7 looks at how the Research Council of Norway uses big data and machine learning. They use it to advise on research investments and also to assess the societal impact of that research.
What's the key takeaway there?
Having a really clear why. Why are you using these tools? And understanding the context of the data is crucial. It's not magic. You need purpose.
Right. Chapter 8 gets into text analysis again, but for stakeholder preferences.
Yeah, it introduces a method to analyze texts, like policy documents, to figure out what different groups prefer. Uses a case study about financial rules in Switzerland and explains a specific technique called wordfish.
Wordfish, okay? And Chapter 9 uses similar techniques for social issues.
It does. It looks at using language analysis, NLP, to understand complex things like public perception during the Russia-Ukraine conflict, specifically analyzing social media discussions.
What did they find there? We'll touch on that later maybe, but any quick hint?
A lot of expressed surprise in the early stages, indicating a sense of broken norms.
Interesting. Chapter 10 circles back to geospatial.
Yes, like GPS, satellite images, drones again. But this time with more specific examples of evaluating environmental and development programs using these tools.
Building on Chapter 3, it sounds like.
Okay, 11.
11 presents case studies of two specific advanced approaches: structural causal modeling and precision analytics. These show potential for creating more personalized, maybe more equitable program evaluations.
Getting beyond the average effect.
Precisely. Chapter 12 looks at how algorithms are increasingly shaping policy and society, but through a specific lens called realist evaluation. It stresses understanding the how and why, the mechanisms and contexts when AI drives interventions. So not just if it works, but how it works and where. Chapter 13.
13 zooms out and analyzes the evaluation field itself, the industry, how market forces, the services offered, and the need for evaluators to adapt are all interacting with these new technologies.
The changing role of the evaluator.
Which leads right into Chapter 14. The final chapter really focuses on the challenges AI poses for evaluators, ethical considerations, keeping a human-centered approach, and how all this might even change professional identity.
Wow, okay. That is a comprehensive tour. Thanks. It covers so much.
It really does. It's a dense book, but very rewarding.
And it brought up some really fascinating points, even in that quick summary. You mentioned earlier, for instance, that evaluators seemed a bit slow to jump on the big data bandwagon initially. Why was that, according to the book?
Well, the book suggests a couple of key reasons. First, there weren't many obvious, relevant examples of how big data could be used effectively in the public and nonprofit sectors, which is, where a lot of evaluation happens.
Right, the use cases weren't immediately clear.
Exactly. And second, there were genuine ethical concerns floating around about using these massive data sets. The field needed some time to really grapple with those issues.
So this book tries to fill those gaps by providing examples and discussing ethics.
Directly. It gives those use cases and dives right into the ethical side.
Makes sense. And what about social media data? You mentioned it's everywhere, but there's a catch.
There is. The book makes a strong point that just having the data isn't the whole story. To actually use it properly for evaluation, you often need pretty sophisticated computer science skills.
For cleaning and preparation.
Yeah, exactly. Cleaning it, structuring it, getting it ready for analysis. It really underscores how important it is for evaluators to team up with data scientists or folks with those technical skills. It's not typically part of standard evaluation training.
Collaboration is key then.
Yeah.
Okay, something that has definitely caught my ear. Drones being used in risky areas.
Yes. That's a really fascinating application. Drones, initially had that military association.
Right.
But now they're proving incredibly valuable in development evaluation. Imagine trying to collect data somewhere dangerous, like illegal mining sites in Colombia, which is an example in the book.
You couldn't send people in.
Probably not safely. Drones can go where people can't, enabling data collection that might have been completely impossible otherwise. It's quite a powerful shift.
That is powerful. And then chatbots helping people disclose more information.
Yeah.
That seems backwards.
It does sound counterintuitive, doesn't it? But the book points to research suggesting that for some people, maybe those who are socially anxious, interacting with a chatbot can feel less intimidating than talking to a human.
Less fear of judgment.
Perhaps. That sense of anonymity might make them more comfortable sharing sensitive information. It opens up some really interesting possibilities for data gathering on tricky subjects.
Okay, and the scale of some analyses, analyzing 100,000 customer comments using machine learning, that sounds like a massive leap in efficiency.
Oh, absolutely. Can you imagine trying to read code and find themes in that many comments manually?
It would take forever.
Exactly. Machine learning can automate that, identify recurring issues, find patterns you might miss, and ultimately help improve services much faster. The U.S. transportation system example really highlights that potential.
Yeah, wow. Here's another surprise. The idea that something like cybercrime doesn't even have a clear agreed-upon definition.
It is surprising, isn't it? The Norway case study brings this out. Without a consistent definition, it's incredibly difficult for police to track it effectively, collect reliable data, or even coordinate efforts.
That ambiguity must really hinder things.
It has real practical consequences for crime stats and prevention, definitely.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, machine learning, helping research councils spot non-obvious research connections. That's clever.
It really is. Traditional searches often rely on keywords, right? But ML algorithms can analyze patterns across proposals, publications, data, and potentially identify these emerging interdisciplinary areas that keywords alone might miss.
So it helps them be more strategic with funding.
That's the idea, helping them invest in potentially groundbreaking areas that are just starting to bubble up.
And related to language analysis, again, using word choice to suss out hidden political stances.
Yes, that quantitative text analysis. It offers a potentially less resource-heavy way to understand where stakeholders are really coming from compared to, say, extensive interviews.
How does it work, basically?
By analyzing the specific vocabulary people use in documents, like policy proposals, you can get insights into their underlying ideological positions or priorities. It can reveal nuances that aren't always explicitly stated.
Clever. And the insight from social media during the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the sense of surprise.
Right. Analyzing the language showed a significant amount of expressed surprise, particularly early on. It suggests just how much the invasion shattered the perceived stability, the sort of long peace context in that region.
So social media analysis can capture that collective emotional response.
It seems so. It highlights its potential for tapping into public sentiment during major events.
Okay, and the last one you highlighted, personalized interventions based on real-time data.
Yeah.
That sounds very futuristic.
It does, but it's happening. Precision analytics using AI could really move us away from those one-size-fits-all programs.
How?
By analyzing data as it comes in during a program, AI might identify what specific approaches are working best for which individuals, almost in real time. This allows for tailoring interventions and getting immediate feedback on effectiveness.
That could make programs much more impactful.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
It's a very exciting direction.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive into artificial intelligence and evaluation really paints a picture of a field at a real turning point, doesn't it?
Absolutely. AI and these related technologies offer incredible opportunities. We can enhance rigor, efficiency, the whole scope of evaluation.
But it's not just about the shiny new tools.
Not at all. And the book serves as a vital reminder of that. The ethical considerations are huge. The need for collaboration across disciplines is clear. And the role of the evaluator itself is evolving.
It's about thoughtful integration, not just adoption.
Precisely. How do we integrate these tools thoughtfully to create evaluations that are genuinely more insightful and impactful?
Which leads to a big question, really. As AI gets woven deeper into our world, how do we make sure its use in evaluation actually promotes equity and social betterment?
And crucially, it doesn't accidentally reinforce existing biases or, create whole new problems.
Yeah, that's the critical conversation, isn't it? And this book sounds like it provides a really solid foundation for starting that discussion.
It definitely does. So if you want to explore these complex issues further, we really encourage you to check out Artificial Intelligence and Evaluation.
Think about how these technologies, these ideas, might apply in your own work or areas you're interested in.
What questions did this deep dive spark for you? Let us know. We'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts.